Welcome to What About PS, a Poland Syndrome podcast, where we talk about all things Poland Syndrome. The episodes that you can look forward to in this podcast speak about the male and female experience, motherhood and breastfeeding, general day-to-day living, health and fitness, and also including hand and chest affected people who have Poland Syndrome. If you have Poland Syndrome, or if you know of someone who has Poland Syndrome, then be sure to have a look out and listen to our latest episodes. Welcome, guys, to our latest episode where we are going to be talking to Michelle about the parent experience, which is something we haven't chatted about yet on the podcast and something I'm personally excited to learn more about. Obviously, I have Poland Syndrome, and so I don't really understand what the experience was like for my parents. And so it's going to be really cool to see that side of it. So thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us. I'm really excited to chat to you today.
Thank you.
And we also have Sam on the call as well. We'll get a little bit of her perspective and her thoughts in and about the episode, but we're mainly going to be chatting to Michelle. So Michelle, welcome. And for the audience and for everyone who's listening, if you wouldn't mind just, giving us a little bit of a background of who you are and the kind of role that Poland Syndrome plays in your life.
Yeah, so I'm Michelle. I live in Washington and Weir, just the northeast of England, with my husband Alan and our two daughters, Ailsa, who is 9, and Everleigh, who is 4, nearly 5, as she keeps reminding us that it's her birthday soon. So, and Everleigh has Poland Syndrome. And when she was little, we would do our little baths and things like that, and she would just kind of almost looked like her right nipple was inverted. And I've been around children. I own my own daycare nursery, so I've been around children forever and a day. And my husband was like, oh, is that kind of normal? And I was just like, oh yeah, children develop at different rates, it's just parts of the body, that kind of thing. So this would have been when she was like a little baby. Can't think what age she was now, but anyway, as she started getting that bit older, like about 2-year-old, 2.5, it started looking a bit more noticeable. And then I would see the muscle area and where at the top, I suppose the inside of the top of her arm as well, it was a bit like, oh, actually it just looks a little bit different. So it would have been January 2022 last year that I took her along to the doctor just to basically say, can you have a little check like this? We're not obviously experts, but think it might be this. Children develop at different rates. And she looked and she was like, oh, I see what you mean. I think I'll refer you to the paediatrician. So we went to the paediatrician, which would have been about a year ago now. It was about the May time. Paediatrician checked her over, checked her back, checked her arms, everything like that, very thorough. And then he said, I believe it could be Poland Syndrome, and kind of brought it up on the computer screen and said, I think a pectoral muscle is absent or underdeveloped. So we were a bit like, right, okay, what does this mean? And he was like, well, I could send you for further scans to see if it's actually there or not, but it won't really make much difference now. And I was just like, well, what do we do? And he was just kind of like, there's not a lot that we can tell you about it. And he said, what I'll do is I want to see her again, and then obviously we'll wait until she gets a bit older. And I mean, Everleigh does dancing, gymnastics, swimming. She's done that since being so small anyway. So it's never, ever hindered her. She just goes for it. She's doing brilliant. So I'd said this to the paediatrician, what do we do now? And he was like, well, what have you done before? And I went, well, we've just let her crack on. She's just her. She just goes for it. And he was like, well, why are you going to change that now? And I was like, okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's so true. So, and then when we came from that meeting, myself and Alan started kind of having a little Google about it, as you do. And I came across the PIP-UK community and made contact with Sam, because I was a bit like, oh, right, there's actually a little community, a little register here. There's a little support network, really, because it was still, we didn't know anything about it. So I got in touch with Sam, and Sam was very helpful. I think we initially sent like a couple of emails, and then I was on the website, and then Alan started following on Facebook as well. And then we just carried on, and it was December. We went back again, paediatrician checked her over, and he just said, you know, it's there's no changes, there's nothing, you know, decreased, increased, anything like that. She's still doing what she needs to do. And he said, at this point, we'll wait until she's a bit older, because obviously we can't do anything until when puberty kind of hits. Really, we don't really know enough about it. So that I went back to Sam and got in touch and kind of made more aware of the community, which has been lovely to be part of, especially this side of this year as well. We've done a lot more awareness raising. We've spoke with our like friends and family about it. Everleigh's aware. She she more talks about like a little nipple. She'll go, oh look, it's just little, but you know. And I'm like, I know, but you've got special powers anyway, so it doesn't matter, doesn't it? Not. And she's very sassy, Everleigh, so she has got that very like kind of you know, if you're in trouble with her, you know, if she doesn't like something, she's like literally a spade is a spade type of thing. So I'm hoping that that's going to stand her in good stead for life as well, because she's very just like, right, so what type of thing, and I'll do it my way and that's it type of thing. But she's very sassy and confident. But yeah, it's been, I think, for myself and Alan as parents, and obviously older sister Ailsa's fully aware as well, it's been lovely to know that we've got a community there where it's like, oh my word, you know, I don't know much about it. Can I ask this question? And you don't feel like a question's a stupid question, and you're going to get like you know, different answers as well, depending on people's experiences with it. And what I like is that community's there if we want it, but it's still there if, say, there might be, you know, we'll go a few weeks and we're just pottering on and there's nothing comes up. And then suddenly it's like, oh, actually, I've got a question about that. What might happen if, you know? And I think at the minute we're literally just cracking on. And I think it might be more when she's that little bit older that it's like, it might be that we really need that support network, and Everleigh might need that support network as well, because obviously, you know, 4-year-old, world's your oyster, you haven't really got a clue. But then obviously when hormones kick in and everything else as well, it's good to know that actually, you know, we have got a support network there. We've got families like around who can help support and chat with Everleigh if she wants to go off and chat with them. Or, you know, if she was like, well, Mum, can you ask this question? You know, it means I can do that as well. So it's just comfortable to know we found this. Because I can imagine if I hadn't come across PIP-UK, I think me and Alan still would be Googling, still kind of like, what do? We wouldn't have raised the awareness that we've already raised. So it is lovely. It's like that little bit of an extension of a family, really.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. And Everleigh sounds awesome. Like, she sounds like someone that, you know, won't take trouble. I'm trying to keep it PG friendly.
Yeah, she's very like, you know, she'll come home from school and she'll be just like, you know, so-and-so today was trying to boss me around, and I was saying, you can't talk like that, you're not the boss of me. And I'm like, all right, I know, well, yeah, like, and poor Ailsa, I mean, she can have Ailsa's life as well. And I'm like, oh, like, I'm going to Ailsa, she wants to just be, she really looks up to her older sister as well. So she sees her, and I think that's what's brought her on as well, where she's like, right, well, Ailsa's swimming, I'll go swimming. Ailsa's doing dancing, I'm doing dancing. You know, it's like, right, Ailsa's going, you know, she done, what had Ailsa done the other week? Something with school anyway. And Everleigh was like, when I'm in year 5, I'm going to do that as well. And I'm like, right, okay. So she's very sure of herself as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's brilliant. And I mean, she can be a worry as well. Like she was dancing to Strictly Come Dancing a couple of years ago, and like to do our little dancing around, and then decided to do a funny little dance and fracture her fingers. So we had that little worry as well. You know, so it's just, I feel like Ailsa never had any broken bones, nothing like that, whereas Everleigh's like giving me this but she just cracks on.
That's amazing. And you know, it sounds kind of similar, you know, I've obviously shared my story with Sam, but it sounds quite similar to like my story. So I was diagnosed, I was younger. I was about a few months. My mom said that it looked like my shoulder almost dislocated. So like what you were saying, there was that missing muscle, kind of by the armpit area. And luckily, I was diagnosed immediately. And the doctor who diagnosed me recommended to my parents that they get me into swimming as soon as possible to strengthen, my upper body. And I ended up competing and kind of like Everleigh, just very sporty, very active. And that was for me the best thing. I owe so much of my life to that doctor and to my parents for going down that route because, and it kind of sounds similar to Everleigh, you're focusing so much on what your body can do and how much fun you're having with it that you're not really thinking about how it looks. And like you're saying, she's so young. Yeah. It's not really, obviously when she gets older, that might, be a challenge there. But right now, it's so awesome to hear that, she's kind of, oh, this is cool. This is my little superpower. Look at all these things that I can do, in spite of, I can, oh, someone else is doing that, or I'm going to go and do it better kind of thing. I really love that attitude and that mindset. And I think, and I'm sure you obviously see this with her and with all the children that you're around, children are so adaptable.
Yeah.
You can't restrict them, or you can't almost put that fear in them because they're also very receptive, right, to their environment. So if you tell them, oh no, don't do this, and they'll kind of pick up on that, but they adapt, they are resilient. If they want to do something, they'll do it. So that's really amazing to hear. That makes me so happy. What were the emotions and the feelings between you and your husband when you guys found out, that she had Poland syndrome? How was that like for you guys?
We were kind of like, because it was like, what is this? How's it going to affect her? And I think it was just like, oh, right. And then I think that night we were kind of like, right, do you know what? It's going to be okay. We've got, it's like, right, we'll do this. She's doing all right anyway as it is. And, it's not going to change anything. And I think it was more that flash forward talking about like, oh, what does the future hold? And then it was like, oh, do you know what? She's only so young. Let's not worry about something that's, another 10 years away and things as well. But every now and then, it creeps up into conversation when we're sitting chatting and we're like, oh, when she's like older and things. And I was chatting like with my friend who's a secondary school teacher, and I was telling her, because Alan was like, kids can be really cruel and stuff, which we know as well when they're older. And then I was chatting with my friend and I was just like, I think that's one of Alan's big stresses. And granted, like, I'm like, I know I can see that, but it'll be fine. So I don't know if I'm trying to like not think about that. But she was saying to me, she was just like, Michelle, do you know what? She went, people are going to comment no matter what. It could be your colour hair, it could be your height, it could be, what shoes you've got on. She was like, people can comment and say what they need. And she was like, but because you and Alan and Ailsa have got that support, the way you're going with her as well, and you kind of, it's not like you're hiding anything away and it's not secretive and it's not anything to be ashamed of. She was like, you're kind of out there with it. She went, she will get, if she gets comments, at least she can, she'll probably be confident and sassy enough to come back with like some sort of sharp comment, which I tried to think what it could be, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, we have had like initially it was like, what does this mean? But then I think when we're chatting with Sam and we're doing like the different meetings and you come across like loads of individuals who've had Poland syndrome, and it's like I'll sit on like some of the meetings and I'm just like, oh wow, Alan, I'm like even more inspired, and like Everleigh's part of this, like, oh, and you see so many people are just doing so many different things, and it's like it's not stopped anybody. It's not letting it get in anybody's way. So it's like, why would we? I mean, not that we sit and dwell on things anyway. We are quite a positive family anyway. But it is just like, do you know what? It will be all right. We'll get around it, whatever happens. We'll face it. We'll deal with it. But we'll keep such a strong family unit. We'll be absolutely fine. So, and it's like, like I say, family and friends are made aware of it now as well. So at least they're like, never heard of it, but it's very interesting. And one of my friends as well, she'd been checking out, I think she must have been checking out celebrities, because she then started reeling off, did you know so-and-so had it? Did you know? And I'm like, oh my God. So, but it's nice because then, people are being made aware, so they're going off and doing their own research as well. And I think it's important to get this out there because, like I say, until a year ago, me and Alan had never heard of it. We'd never come across it. And then it was like, whoa, Everleigh's got it, right? What does this mean? But then I feel like now we're here and now, and we're like, oh, right, we've done this, we made awareness, we're doing, it's like, yeah, it will be, I'll have a challenge and things, but it's I'll go back to that support again as well. It's nice to know we've got that support around us.
Yeah. I was in London earlier this year with Sam, and we met some people who are part of the community, and there was this young girl there, and I think she was probably about 9, Sam,
right,
around there. She was spewing facts about Poland syndrome. She knew the amount of people that had it and the ratio between men and women. And she said to me she'd never met anyone that had Poland syndrome. And here I am in my 20s saying, hey, this is the first time I've ever met anyone, with Poland syndrome. And to see how much of a difference Sam and PIP and these communities are making in everyone's lives, whether they are 5 months, 15 years or 60 years old. But I think especially with the younger generation and the parents of the younger generation, because like you're saying, you at least have that support, you have the education, you have a place where you can ask questions, even if they might be quote unquote silly questions. It's never a silly question, but when I was growing up, I wouldn't say I was encouraged to hide it. I wouldn't say that that's a fair representation of it, but it was more of, exactly what you're saying. Kids can be nasty, in school, especially high school. And it was almost a thing of, why would I want to put myself in a situation where I could open up that door? I was very lucky in that I had a really good support system with my parents. I told my close friends, and it's interesting when you tell people, it's not that they don't care. It's just like, oh, that's interesting. Okay. And then they move on.
And then move on,
It's really not as big of a deal, in their heads as you might make it seem. But, and I wouldn't say it affected me negatively at all. Like the older I got, and I think especially when I left school, because I got surgery when I was 18, exactly what you guys were recommended to wait until fully developed. And I think when that happened, I became a lot more outspoken about it when I felt like telling someone. So obviously I work out a lot. So when I would do certain things and it came up in conversation, I didn't really feel anything. It was just a matter of fact. But my point being is that it's amazing that you guys and Everleigh are in a situation where, it doesn't need to be hidden, and I love the balance that it seems like you guys have, where you're not making like this too much of a deal of it, where it almost starts to hold it back. But it's like, you have it, that's cool, and look at the amazing community. There's other people that have it as well, and look at all of the community that you have and the things that you guys can do. So I think that's really amazing. And something I've always been quite interested in, because obviously I've always known that I've had it. I can't remember when I got told or how I got told, but how did you and Alan kind of broach that with Everleigh? How did you explain it to her and tell her what's going on?
Because she's very savvy. Like when she was born, she'll even say now, she's like, when I went to the doctor to show them my nipple, so she obviously doing the checks and everything like that, and when we come away, it was just like, oh, they've checked and it just might be that little area is a little bit small, and she's just like, oh, okay. So she'll even, like I say, she'll say now, and she's like, oh, my small nipple, and she'll go, when I went to the doctors to get my nipple checked. So she just thinks it's that kind of area, although she's focused on her nipple, we'll say, oh, that area, And then obviously, so it's hard because you think, well, she's talking about it. So I suppose for her, it's that start of, she's always going to be aware of it as well. And we told our big sister Ailsa, because we literally, obviously Ailsa's 9. So she actually had like a puberty talk back in the start of her year 5, about like body changes and things like that. And then she was like, she was just like, they're saying, you'll develop breasts, but is that where Everleigh, she might not develop one breast, mum? And so she's like fully aware as well, where she's got that understanding. And I'm like, yeah, I said, we just have to see when she gets that bit older. And she's like, right, okay. So she even says, she's like, I've spoke to my friends about it, and I've told them, and like even Ailsa's friends are just like, all right, what's that? Oh, okay. So, and it's nice that Ailsa's openly chatting about it with her friends as well, because again, it's like, she's telling her friends, and you don't know when they might go and tell their parents as well and be like, oh, Ailsa's sister, So yeah, it's just making it all aware so everyone's supportive. But yeah, going back when we were telling Everleigh, we just kind of like said, yeah, it's being checked and it just might be a little bit small, and she was just like, yeah, okay. Like,
that's amazing. And it's so awesome for her to have, a big sister role model, and exactly what you're saying. I think speaking about it more normalizing it is really an important goal, especially because it's so rare. It's a thing of people just aren't aware of it. And then when they become aware of it, it's like, oh, that's cool.
Right. Yeah.
What are the challenges that you and Al have faced up until this point so far?
What, in terms of like?
In terms of the Poland syndrome, it sounds like you guys have had a pretty smooth, kind of diagnosis, but what are the challenges, if there have been any?
I would say, like, obviously we've had the diagnosis, but what I did notice was the paediatrician, it was that, there's not a great awareness type of thing. And he wanted to refer us to Durham Hospital, which I do need to chase up, because they said if I hadn't had anything in a certain period of time, I've got to chase it up. And I think he wanted to refer us to Durham more to keep Everleigh on the kind of case file there, just to monitor when she's a bit older and like options. And he said, it would be when she's older, it's entirely up to her what she wants to do. If she did want any surgery, the route's there. We've always said as well, we've just said that we would leave it entirely up to Everleigh. We're not going to we'll let her, whatever she decides, then we're kind of like going to go for it. So I would say the challenge in the past year is probably the not aware of it, and like the GP's like, oh yeah, I see what you mean, I'll refer that on to the paediatrician, so, and I know they can't turn around and be like, oh well, I think it could be this, and then it could be like diagnosed wrong. But like even the paediatrician, doing that check, and then the next thing, right, and brought up it on the like screen and things like that, so it was like, right, okay, it's a bit like just Googling. So I think that's probably been like the challenge in itself, where we couldn't just go to a medical professional and say, right, tell us more about it. I feel me and Alan's kind of had to do that via PIP-UK. And then I just think probably in the future as well, like when we go down whatever route when she hits puberty as well, it might be that we face another set of challenges, if we're keep pushing and raising that awareness and keep telling everybody as well. But if it's still not enough knowledge and we get to her age, then could that possibly be another challenge that we're faced with, where we're kind of like, well, it's this, have you not heard of it? We need further support. So yeah, but like I say, hopefully once I chase that referral to Durham Hospital and they've got her on file there, then it kind of makes us start really with like banging the drums really to raise more awareness of it. So
yeah. Sam, how does it make you feel knowing that PIP is providing not only support but also a well of educational information for parents specifically?
Yeah, I suppose as a parent it still makes me quite emotional, but like really happy, because our diagnosis journey was really different. George was diagnosed really early, but we were quite isolated for a number of years when he was diagnosed, and that was really hard. So seeing the visual difference of a family like Michelle's getting the diagnosis and then finding a community and information really quickly, and seeing that generational change happening is just like the best thing ever, really. It just is everything that I wanted as a parent at that time, and to see that being provided now is amazing. And it makes me think about that future of like 10, 12 years time, when Everleigh might need some more support. Like, let's hope that it's a million times better again. So it takes me back, and then it drives me forward as well, of like, right, we've got this far, and let's, by the time Everleigh's at that next stage, let's make sure that bit's ready for her as well, and improved, and exactly what the community want and need it to be as well.
Yeah, and we'll go into the surgery part of it now, because I know that's a massive area of confusion or fear. But Sam, what kind of support or educational resources does PIP offer specifically for parents? If there's any that you can let our listeners know about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can provide one-to-one support, so we can talk to you on the phone, email, online, to find out what's going on with you and your family and what you might need from the community. We host annual wellbeing sessions for different age groups, different people. We hopefully got some more parent-centred stuff coming up later this year. And then, there's a wealth of information on our website and on social media. A lot of it based around people's experiences primarily, because the medical information still isn't out there. But there is some more medical information, and we share, as much of that as we possibly can. There was a recent medical webinar. It's not particularly aimed at parents, and it's about surgery from a surgeon's point of view. So you might want to wait for the write-up on that rather than watch the video itself. But there's that, and there's 2 medical sources of information that we recommend, which one is a medical paper written by the Italian Poland Syndrome Association, which gives you a view on the recommended surgeries for hands and chest. And then there's a website called GARD, a rare disease website, which will give you like the full description of Poland syndrome, its symptoms, its known information. But really, just join the community, and you'll get access to all that and be linked through to all that as well. I was going to mention as well, when you're talking about like talking to the kids about it earlier, Giselle and Michelle, I think it's really interesting how that happens. And obviously when you're born with the hand difference as well as the chest difference, I think sometimes that goes a little bit differently. And I thought it kind of important to mention that when the kids have got a visible difference, obviously everybody has a visible difference anyway, but visible hand difference, it kind of comes up a little bit earlier with them, I think, around the age of around 3, when they're coming to terms with their body and things like that. So with George, he was diagnosed in his first year, so we had the language about Poland syndrome, and even before he could properly talk, we would talk about it, and openly, a bit like you guys. And then he actually asked a question about it when he was 3, and that to me is like the first time we really had a proper conversation, a little back and forth rather than me just talking at him. And he actually said, like, when will my hand grow? We were driving in the car back from nursery one day, actually, and I'll never forget that moment, because it was a little bit heartbreaking as a mum, like, oh, he knows now, he fully knows. But also a lovely opener to like, well, I'm so glad you've asked, it won't grow. Well, that's all right, because you're perfect as you are, and it's because of your Poland syndrome, and you're missing the muscle in your chest as well. But we wouldn't change it for the world, would we? And then his next conversation was like, well, what's for dinner? Or something. Straight up.
Kids.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really similar in a lot of ways to talking about with Everleigh, because it's factual, it's short, and then they're on to the next best thing. And I just think that's so important to have those like open, factual conversations throughout their life, because after all these years, I really see the difference it makes to families. And, the families that haven't been able to have those conversations for whatever reason, the difference it makes there. And it's just so, so important to encourage these open early conversations throughout life.
Do you think, I'll direct this question to both of you, Michelle, especially with your experience with kids in general, but Sam, do you think, and it's obviously justified, but do you think parents sometimes stress more about certain things for their kids than kids actually, think about when they're younger? Obviously, when they get older, hormones, life, things, but, talking about chatting to your children about Poland syndrome in your case, do you think parents stress about it more, make it more of a bigger deal than the kids do?
100% in those
Definitely.
early years. Yeah, Michelle's nodding. Yeah. The parents' worries are the biggest thing in those early years, and for very understandable reasons. And I always try to say to them that your worries will never be their experiences. And I didn't feel that myself until George went to high school. But once he was at high school, and I realised that was my last big worry, and he's here, and it's happened, and he's fine, I was like, none of those worries that I started out with ever came to fruition. So what was the point? What was the actual point in spending all that time worrying? You agree, Michelle?
Yeah, definitely. It's like literally going back to that conversation with me and Alan when we're like worrying about 10 years time, and it's like, no, just try not to think about it, just focus on the here and now. So I think I'll definitely take that away again as well, just what you've said there, Sam, because it is, you can think, oh my word, and you think about that future, but like you say, it might never come to that anyway. So, and we'll just cross whatever bridge when we get there anyway. So, yeah, but definitely I do think parents, we're bad for it, aren't we? We're just...
And it's understandable. I mean, like, I think because you know how the world is, and kids are so they're so young and their experiences are so few. But again, I find children to be so amazing with how they just deal with things. Oh, it is what it is. I know the advice that my parents got, because they, were also obviously worrying about when I grew up and, my body developed in school and everything. And the advice that they got was, talk about it openly if it comes up in conversation. And if I ever have any, like, make me feel comfortable knowing that if I want to talk about something, I can. But they said they kind of just waited for me to bring it up if I ever had a concern, and I never did. And, so that was that. It was kind of like I grew up knowing I'd have surgery when I was 18, and that was just kind of a fact, and everyone kind of moved on from it. So they almost kind of put the ball in my court. If I felt like talking about it, if I felt like I had a challenge that I needed help with or support, they would be there. But it was never like, they never imparted any of their anxiety or their fear onto me, which I think was great. And the next point of conversation I really want to get into is the surgery options. That is something that has been coming up a lot. And it has a lot of different there's a lot of different opinions on it, and a lot of different ways it can be done. So Michelle, what were kind of the options that were given to you? And I know you said you were going to leave it for Everleigh to decide. What was your kind of decision-making process in that?
So speaking with the paediatrician back in December, he just said, look, when we refer you to Durham, obviously we'll keep her on file, and then there will be options where she could have, like, he then just mentioned about like plastic surgery, things like that. But I've got to be honest, he didn't really go into, I think because obviously she was just 4 at the time, he was like, right, there's things that can be done, but, we just have to wait until she hits puberty and see how things are as well. So that was kind of left like that. And then it was myself and Alan where we just said, right, we'll see how things go. And then when she's older and we've got finding out a bit more about what options are available, then we'll kind of let Everleigh make that decision as well and see what she wants to do. But yeah, it wasn't really discussed in detail with the paediatrician. I think because he was more right, but we're here where we are now. There's, that she's fine. there's anything has changed since we last like had her in clinic. But we will come back and see her in like X amount of years and things. So it wasn't really discussed in detail with him, I've got to be honest. Yeah, it was just kind of like mentioned, we're aware of it. But I think for us, it's something we'll look into detail later on if need be. So yeah, I've got just kind of got a pending really, to be honest. So
yeah. At least you know it's something that you can expect whether she has it or doesn't have it. So that's at least, you know, having that knowledge and that foresight is great. Kind of going back to what we were talking about, where, you know, you kind of want to forecast how you're going to deal with Everleigh when she grows up. What have the conversations been around that? Do you and Alan have any, you know, strategies on how to deal with potential challenges that she might have? I'd be interested to hear your plan of action there.
I think for us, we're just always going to be like have them open conversations. So from, you know, forever in a day, having them constant conversations with her. And then I think it's when, you know, she's like I say, it's that awareness that, right, that's going to be small like area. So I suppose if she comes to it and she's like, right, is that never, you know, is that muscle area never going to grow? Then it would be like, yeah, we'll have like a bit more of a detailed conversation. So I think it's more going off what's, I suppose, age appropriate, because she, you know, she's aware that it's like a smaller area. I think probably when she's about 9, when they talk about the puberty, which is why I want to target like the health promotion teams, because they're going, it's all very well them going in talking about puberty, but when you do that puberty talk with Everleigh, she's not going to have the typical, like, you know, breasts grow and whatever rate and things like that as well. So I think probably before that, around that, we'd be having that conversation just to say, oh, you're going to get that talk. It might be where Ailsa pipes up and she'll say, they're going to tell you about this, this and this, but you just remember, you know. So I think we're just going to keep it really open. We, like I say, we are quite a positive, like humorous family as well. So, you know, we do like make light and positive out of things as well. So, you know, I think that it's just going to challenge it as it is, really see what happens. So, yeah, I don't think we've got anything concrete, but it's being open, having them open conversations. And, you know, I can just picture her saying, like, I just, this is the thing as well, I can actually see Everleigh, like, when they're coming in doing this puberty talk, being like, well, do you know what? That's not going to be me, actually. Like, she can educate people, that's great, you know. But it's the type of character that she is, I think she might be more telling them really like, well, actually, no, not everybody does develop at this rate, and you know. So and I think it's having them talks beforehand as well, little discussions about, you know, what may arise and that. But I think it's probably going off age, really, age and understanding for her.
Yeah, you know, this talk has been amazing, because kind of the overarching theme that I've gotten from it is, you know, have a good support system and structure like PIP, you know, where you can learn about things and you can chat to people, you know, be confident and be proud of who you are, you know, and just keep open lines of communication. And I think, you know, those 3 things are amazing. And I think what Sam and PIP is doing in providing that support, which is something that a lot of us never had growing up, I think is a massive game changer. So I'm really excited to see how that can help people in the future. Before we leave, Michelle, what is one piece of advice you could give to a parent who's still very early on in their journey of, you know, Poland syndrome and kind of navigating their way with their way through that with their children?
I'm trying to think. I would just say reach out, get that support, and it doesn't matter who it's from. You know, me and Alan sat there initially like, and then it was like, PIP-UK ventured there. Then it was like, right, we need to really educate family and friends on this as well. So I would definitely say speak out, talk. Like, it is really important to talk, and it's good to just raise that awareness. So I would say definitely support. And like I've said, we're quite a positive like family as well. We're like, yes, you know, everyone's going to get the worries like I've just talked about, you know, the little worries, the little stresses, but it's like, right, come on, what we got here and now, what's positive that we're focusing on, let's run with it, you know, deal with everything else when it comes. But I would just say massive support, speak out. It doesn't, and like I've touched on earlier on, it doesn't matter, not, you know, there's no question that's a silly question. It's good to know that you've got that support there, which is important for, say, some days where you're like, oh, actually, yeah, I do need it. But then, you know, that support there is there as well when everything's fine and you've got no questions and you're just ticking on and, you know, you're just enjoying life. So, yeah, support and talk out about it.
Support and talk out, community, positivity, and for the days where you're not feeling so positive, having people around you who can help lift you up. I love that. Michelle,
Definitely.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey and sharing your experience and, you know, really helping parents who might be in the same situation as you. I know that will make a massive difference. So I really appreciate you coming here and sharing everything with us. Sam, as well, from your side, always thank you so much for doing what you do and giving people a space to talk and be vulnerable and to get support where they need it. So thank you guys so much. It was amazing. And I can't wait to chat to you again soon, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us and subscribe to our podcast and follow us on our social media platforms, Instagram and Facebook. See you soon.